This doesn't necessarily tell you how many people are using the product, because with an open source product, you can never really know how many people actually have it installed and they're actively using it. But downloads give you one metric of the interest for a product. If you've had that many people have downloaded it, that at least means they must have some interest in the product. Who are some of the people that are using Plone4Artists? Oxfam America is using it, the calendaring component for their calendar. So if you go to calendar.oxfamamerica.org, you can play around with their calendar. Motorola is using it, at least they were a few years ago, for managing their ringtones, of all things. An internal project. Friends of the Earth is an organization in Holland, Netherlands. The Nature Conservancy, and Plone.tv, which I'll be talking about tomorrow. And those are just the ones that I know are using it because they've sponsored, given some money to the project. So, before we go to that slide, any questions about Plone4Artists before I move on to the next part? Mike, did you raise your hand?
No. I mean, I had it on my head. I mean, I did raise it.
Oh, okay. You were just like patting your head, just like.
Am
I still here? Okay. Question.
Will those download numbers both from Plone.org product and off of?
No, those were just numbers off of the Plone4Artists.org. So I'm not sure, there might be, but the download links on Plone.org actually point to Plone4Artists.org. So I think these are pretty accurate numbers, but there may be other downloads from other sources that I don't know about. Okay, so how do you get started if you have an open source project that you want to get out there? Well, I'm a big proponent of not reinventing the wheel. There's this thing called the NIH syndrome, which means not invented here, which many developers suffer from. They say, well, I can just develop that, So they just start writing code. And they never bother to do a Google search or look around or ask a question on a mailing list to see, has anyone already developed this thing? And I suspect, I could be wrong here, but I suspect the education communities may be a little bit like this. They think, well, we'll just develop that. And you get a bunch of developers and start writing some new components without even asking, are there any other universities that may have already developed something like this? Or is there already a product in the collective that does what we want? So we get all these islands of development, all these people all working on their own little pet projects, and you don't actually build any consensus around one definitive best practice product that everyone can use and document and fix bugs on. So that's just something to keep in mind. Before you start a project, make sure that someone else hasn't already done it. Choose a good name. I made a big mistake in choosing the project name because at the time it was, yes?
I wanted to mention, I totally agree with this, but what happens if you search, and the calendar is a good example. There are multiple products that are out there. Plone.org doesn't have a specific direction identified yet. And then if you lock into something, and it wasn't the best choice, then you're sort of stuck. So could you talk a little bit about that aspect of getting started?
Yeah, it's tough. Open source is oftentimes a moving target, right? You start one product and then you find out a few months later, like the developer, got married and he doesn't have time to maintain anymore, or he just loses interest, and then you have to shift to something else. So I always look for, how active is the project? How many people are working on it? Is it well documented? Does it have tests? There's certain indicators you can look at in a product to see whether it's a good choice or not. We've been burned in the past by just throwing every single product that we find into a website, and then when we have to migrate, we got a major headache. So I'm much more selective now about which products I select to include with the Plone4Artists bundle. I make sure there's actually a person that I can contact, in the event that there's a major problem with the product. And I try to establish relationships with those people so they know who I am, and if I contact them and say, we got a problem with your product, if we can't fix it, we know that they're around. But you're right, there's a lot of products in Plone.org/products in the collective. And it's hard to know which ones are going to be around and which ones you should use. Especially if you're not a developer, you might not be able to tell, is there good test coverage? As you heard this morning, we're planning to have some sort of rating system on Plone.org that will make it easier for people to identify what are best of breed products, which ones should I use. If there's 10 calendaring products, here's the one that has had the most downloads. Or, this product is used on these 10 sites, and you can go look at those sites and see, hey, they're using it, it must be pretty good. Or this product has 80% test coverage. Things like that you can, if that's really important to you, you can only find you can just search out the products that have really good, if you're putting an application into production, and it's a mission critical application, you don't want to have all your users screaming at you like, hey, this thing is busted. You want to do due diligence on the product to make sure that it's going to be stable and reliable. Did that answer your question?
Pretty much, yeah, thanks.
Okay. So choosing a good name. I wish that I had named Plone4Artists because it's not really representative of the product anymore. And I think it may deter people from trying it out because it's not really products for artists specifically. It's products that artists can use, but we found that the audience was much broader than that. And we have the calendaring product, and the audio and the video are being used by a lot of nonprofit organizations, and a lot of people are using the products. But once you have a name, then it gets really hard to change it. So maybe we'll still do that, but think about a good name. Something that's Googleable helps. I just installed a program on my Mac called Things. Try to Google that. Have a clear mission statement. The first thing people are going to do when they come to your website to find out what your project is, what does this thing do? Like, who is it for? Is it for me? What's the audience? So make it very clear what this product is. And to someone who's been living with software for several years, you think it's just kind of obvious. Like, you know what it is. But new people that are coming to your website for the first time, they don't know what your product does. So just having like a one statement saying, this product is for this kind of people, this is what it does. And you find a roadmap. People want to see where you're going, what's around the corner. So give people something to look forward to and keep them coming back, I think is really important. So once you have the project up and running, then the hard part starts. Then you have to nurture it. It's easy to get something started. It's much harder to keep something going. And like anything in life, communication is really important. You got to have clear communication channels. And if you've been in the open source community for a while, we have mailing lists, we have IRC, we have issue trackers. These are all tools that you can use to keep those communication channels going. I could not have done Plone4Artists by myself. I had to find other people that were smarter than me that would write code and fix bugs and help document. And is Jonathan Lewis in the room? He's not here. Jonathan Lewis from Tokyo, Japan, has made 3 screencasts about Plone4Artists on his own time as a volunteer. He recorded them, he edited them, he added music to them. Really amazing work. And those screencasts, I think, have really helped promote the product. And I couldn't find the time to make those myself, but Jonathan stepped in and volunteered to do that. So inviting people to join and participate is a part of nurturing the community. As I mentioned, we've done a lot of sprints. These are very intense. They're usually 4 to 5 day coding sessions, not always coding, but usually coding. And we get a lot done at these sprints. You'd be surprised, a whole year can go by of, a few check-ins here and there and fixing a few bugs. And in one sprint, you can leaps and bounds because you've got everyone in the same room, there's no distractions, and you can just pound something out. You can get software written really fast. So that's another really great way to build momentum in the community. And lastly, don't forget to recognize individual efforts. Because open source is very much a volunteer effort, people aren't compensated financially for their time. You don't hand them a check and say thank you for your work. So recognizing people for their efforts is really important. You have to let people know, I really appreciate what you did, and make it public, so that they know that you appreciate it and that other people will see their work.